to the Efed podcast, the podcast exploring our fantasy wrestling hobby, where the wrestling is written, but the characters are real. Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of the Efed podcast. I'm so excited you could join us this week. I am Mikey Unlikely, your host with the most. As always, I'm joined by Brian, the producer, the co-host, the man, the myth, the legend, rap extraordinaire. Brian, how you doing?
I am doing fantastic. How about you, sir?
I am doing well, very well. We're coming up on, well, as you're hearing this, the pay-per-view is already dropped for classic-wrestling.com. It's in your haunted house. It's our second pay-per-view, and it drops on Halloween evening, so check that out. We've also got a whole lot of stuff going on this show, Brian. Not only do we got a new guest, not only do we got a new question of the week, but as you're listening right here this week on the Efed podcast, the top 100 voting has already begun.
Jesus Christ.
So get out there, fill out that app, send it in to us, get your votes in, get them counted. We're counting down the top 100 this year. You've got until, I believe, the 7th of November to get your votes in, and then we'll have your results out here in a few weeks, video by video. Brian, are you ready?
Not only am I not ready for that workload, I am also not ready for the whining pseudo ridiculous backlash to an arbitrary list.
I don't know what you're talking about, Brian. We had a great turnout last year. Very positive. It was amazing. Going into my Trump now. It was great. It was positive.
Huge.
I don't care what you heard.
Everyone's saying it.
Everyone thinks it's the best top 100 there is out there. Okay. Especially the people who made the top 100 last year. No, It's exciting. It's fun. It's a great project. I've got the green screen steamed and ready to go. We've got the new office equipment here, so we can put our half desk together, Brian, and make it happen. A little fun conversation before the podcast started. But no, today on the podcast, we've got Joe.
Fired guy.
Joe is the handler of Pat Cassidy, Laramie, Ned Reform, and Farrell, Freddie Kilgore, our very own Hulk Hogan of classic-wrestling.com.
I mean, I would go out on a limb here and say if he is feral, he is probably also fearless.
He is fearless and feral, Freddie Kilgore. I'm sure he'll probably add that to his next role play when he's yelling at the moon and the stars.
Fearless, feral, fired. It all lines up. He's triple F.
Triple fired. Joe's handled in feds like Defiance Wrestling, Classic Wrestling, Shoot Project, AVW, Appalachian Valley Wrestling, if I remember correctly, and more.
Oh, yeah. Especially when it comes to Defiance, Joe has set a record for joining the Fed more times than anyone in the history of its existence. More than Seth, and all the same character. We fire him and he comes back, and we fire him and he comes back.
It's not an application; it's a reapplication.
Exactly.
You love to see it, Christy. So Joe is going to be on the show today. We're going to have a fun time talking to him, going over his past in e-wrestling, his long gap, and then how he came back just a few years ago. An interesting story, Brian. Of course, we had something to do with that.
Oh. Unfortunate.
Yeah. we led him through many firings.
many firings. Which, I mean, hey, you know what? Just for posterity, Joe, you're fired.
Well, not only is Joe on the show today, he's going to be fired by the end, but we've also got the question of the week. And obviously, the answer for Joe is obvious. But if you had to hang out with your own e-wrestler for a day, what would you do together? Joe would be on the unemployment line with his guy filling out those applications. So we know that. But we're going to get to your answers later on the show. For me, Brian, I think if I was hanging out with Mikey Unlikely, we're living that frap life.
Oh,
first off. Frap
life for life.
Frap life for life. You start at the fraps and you end with the strippies. That's the way it goes when you're a Hollywood bruv, and there's no getting around that. Mikey's going to take you where he's going to take you.
And every time you think you're out, the fraps pull you back in.
Uber Eats is always on call. So that's what I believe Mikey Unlikely and I would be doing. Brian, what about Scott Douglas and you, or maybe K9 and you?
Oh man, both of those questions are tough. Scott Douglas, I don't know, probably like jerking it to a Nirvana documentary or something.
I was going to say like maybe helping out the local community, something a babyface would do, but no. Let's go on. Let's go with jerking that to a weird grunge documentary.
I mean, K9 though. I think at this point, like I don't know, icing our knees.
Oh, there you go. Maybe a little shoot pop pop action.
Pop pop.
Well, there you go. We're going to get to your guys' answers for the question of the week. It's a fun one. I'm excited to read what you guys got. Of course, you can catch that question of the week on twitter.com/the Efed And Brian, that's not all. We've got not our hosts. We've got our sponsors.
Oh,
for the Efed podcast. I want to give a shout out to the FSW Network. That's the future stars of wrestling at FSWnetwork.com. For a short, I keep on messing this up, Brian. It's like it's my first time, but it's actually episode 83. For a small fee, you can get tons of wrestling action, documentaries, the best of many wrestlers that you've heard of, ones who are appearing on WWE and AEW today. Check it out, FSWnetwork.com. Occupy Pro Wrestling. We want to give a shout out to our buddy Alex. It is a great wrestling community where you're going to catch videos, YouTube videos of unboxings, reactions, fun games, and cool Discord community over at OccupyProWrestling.com.
Putting the smart back in the smart mark.
That's right. And they've got great podcasts. If you like this one, you'll like theirs as well. Check them out. They do live video versions.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know a whole lot about Alex, but I do know this. If you're into talking,
Alex has come to both love and hate that that we point that trait out all the time.
he's got that one down pat. I mean, and in a oral medium, I mean, you need to know how to talk. He
That's
does.
Right. Lots to unpack here, Brian. We're going to get into it and so much more here on the show. Guys, here is a word from our sponsors. The Efed podcast is a totally free podcast that drops each and every single week for your e-wrestling ears on a multitude of apps. If you'd like to support the show, however, the best way to do so is over at patreon.com/Efed podcast. For as little as $3 a month, you can support both Brian and myself as we crank out more e-wrestling content with perks such as early releases and special Discord designations. And if that's not enough EW action for you, jump up to the $10 a month tier and you can get a free EWTs t-shirt design, early and ad-free editions of the show, as well as access to our monthly Q&As, bad graps, and more. And if you'd like to be a sponsor on the show and get your ad played, the best way to do that is the sponsor level on Patreon, with all of the previous perks, plus weekly commercials on the show. Check it out over at patreon.com/Efed podcast. We greatly appreciate your consideration.
Occupy Pro Wrestling, putting the smart back into smart mark since 2012, with a community on Discord and message boards, merchandise, a weekly vodcast on Twitch, and much more. Check out everything from us and our site partners at OccupyProWrestling.com.
Efed Tees, the #1 source for Efed merchandise, offering custom merchandise made for your wrestler, tag team, stable, or Efed. Whether you want a high-quality t-shirt, face mask, hoodie, hat, it doesn't matter. We can help you out over at EfedTees.com. Do you have a custom logo for your wrestler? Awesome. We're going to slap it on a shirt and help you out real fast. If not, no problem at all. We have a custom design service too. You can work with a graphic artist to get the perfect design made for your character. Go on over to EWTees.com and click on Want a Shirt to get your shirt started. EfedTees.com.
For over a decade, Defiance Wrestling has redefined what an E-Fed can be. An angle fed with a rich history and a colorful cast of characters, Defiance Wrestling offers a drama-free environment with some of the most experienced and talented writers in the history of the game, with a level of consistency that few other promotions can offer. With on-time events, micro offerings, and even a long-form in-character radio show, as well as a forum home on the classic fwrestling.com. Nobody, I said it, nobody does fantasy wrestling quite like Defiance. Come, see what all the buzz is about. Come check out DefianceWrestling.com. You heard me. It's DefianceWrestling.com. I'll see you there.
All right. We've got a brand new sponsor here on the podcast. I'm excited to bring him to you because, guys, this is the real deal. This is not an Efed. This is pro wrestling at its finest, and welcome back to a network that's easy to use. We've got the FSWNetwork.com as our new sponsor. That's the Future Stars of Wrestling Network. You can check it out. One of the top indie promotions on the West Coast. They have their own network now for $6.99 a month. You'll get access to over a decade of content, including wrestlers that you and I both know, like Karrion Kross, Matt Hardy, Chris Bay, Zoe Stark, Brian Cage, and so many more. You get access to network exclusive shows, live streams, specials, and more. They've got pay-per-views, they've got weekly shows, they've got shows that just got uploaded that are from July. Guys, this thing is going quick. It's growing quick. Get in on the ground floor before it goes up. $6.99 a month is not bad for 10 years of content. There's content on content on content on here. And for what I'm hearing, even the original series are getting more views than some of the wrestling shows. They're that good. Check it out, FSW Network, the future stars of wrestling, right now at FSWNetwork.com. It's that time once again, Brian, the Efed podcast question of the week. We're going to bring it back to you. This week, we answered at the top of the show for us. Now we're answering for you. If you had to hang out with your e-wrestler for a day, what would you do? We asked you to drop the answer in the comments below on Twitter and the Discord machine. Of course, you can catch us on Twitter at the Efed Podcast. That's TheEfedPodcast. Haven't done that one in a while.
Hey.
And what we got on the Twitter machine, Brian, are you ready for it?
I'm ready. Let's rock.
It's at Thatcher Rex. It's Thatcher Rex.
I think first answer 2 weeks in a row, if I'm not incorrect.
The man is on it.
He says, # OOC. Ook. With Thatcher, ? Bar hop. With Maddie, ? Yacht party, since she holds one annually. Well, I hope you're hanging out with her on that exact day.
Well, it works out, yeah. If you are, it works out great.
Indeed. I mean, you got a little bit more room to play with Thatcher. I mean, you can bar hop anytime.
That's right. And it's a fun hobby to have, let me tell you.
Hey.
Up next, Brian, we got one of my favorites on the question of the week answers. One that I've been using your gimmick as of recently in my personal life. Anytime we gotta get the kids going, I tell them, let go! It's Philip Legault at Armenian Beast.
And he says, vodka. Lots and lots of vodka.
Well, there you go. I'm ready for some vodka myself.
And that's vodka with a W. That's how he wrote it.
Well, he's not American, Brian.
Isn't it
both OOC, both ook and ick.
It's been so long since I've had vodka. If I had any, I'd probably both ook and ick.
I believe the Ron Swanson says that clear liquors are for rich women on diets. So there you have it. Up next, Brian, we've got Duncan Ryder / Shepherd at Dashing Doctor.
Oh, hit the gym, play some video games, plan the revolution.
Oh, there you go. The man who is the mind behind the character is going to plan it out with him.
That escalated quickly.
It did, yeah. Let's play some video games. Let's hit the gym, get a good workout, maybe break a sweat, and take over the world.
Yeah, it's very Pinky in the Brain-esque.
Same thing we do every night, Pinky. All right, Brian. Up next, it's our guy. It's Alias at I Am Not Alias,
aka Elias, aka pseudonym. He says very simply, crack.
Oh, they're going to be doing some crack.
Crack cocaine.
Well, that's all that I can assume based on the answer of crack. Maybe that's a pseudonym for something else.
Oh, it's possible. Maybe that's an alias for something else.
The man likes his wordplay. Speaking of wordplay, up next is at N1GHTMARE Angel. It's Nightmare Angel. It's Queen of the World, Chelsea Sky.
Hooked on phonics, work for me. That's not what she said. She said, listen to metal, play video games.
Hey, I love to do both those things, to be honest.
I mean, but now, Duncan Ryder set the bar a little high. Now I'm like, all right, well, why not plan the Revolution too?
Or play the Revolution if you're playing some games.
Oh.
We're going to kick it over to the Discord side of things.
So over on the Discord side of things, first up, it's Wolfpack variant, Tony with 5 A's.
Tone with 5 A's on the scene, with Carlos go on a tour of Spanish vineyards.
Okay.
Carlos, of course, from Spain.
Oh. So he knows all the finest vineyards.
He's got the inside info on the vineyards.
He's a Spanish sommelier.
Spanish, Brian, not Somalian.
I've heard it both ways. Up next, Pumpkin, Megan, Pumpkin, Dash, leader of 5VW.
Pumpkin Meg, go to Tony Luke's and show them the real cheesesteak. She's taking all of them characters, rounding them up, hitting that tour bus on over to Tony Luke's in Philadelphia, and they're going to eat some real cheesesteaks.
That sounds expensive.
Hey, as long as they're taking me along, I don't care how expensive it is.
Hey, I'm cooking some cheesesteaks tonight, actually.
There you go. Have at it.
Cheese whiz and all. And speaking of cheese whiz,
I was about to say the same thing.
up next,
Stole the words from my mouth.
it's Bobo.
Bobo, his answer is cocaine, strippers, and the buffet. Not in that order, mind you.
Oh.
Probably all three at once.
I mean, hey, if you're gonna do it large, and that's how Bobby Dean does it.
Go big or go home.
I mean, but if you're gonna do that, how can you tell what is like cocaine nasal drip stain, splooge, and or mayonnaise?
Never mind. You put the drugs into the food.
Do you just taste it? I think you just taste it. Like, no, that's not. I wasn't.
And have the stripper feed you. All right. We're getting too deep. This is going to turn into a Bobby Dean role play real quick.
Hey, up next. Speaking of things that should never happen, it's Cassidy.
Fired
guy. Joe didn't start the fire.
But he is on the show today. So Joe says, I'd get fucking piss drunk with Pat Cassidy and be in bed by 4 p.m. Me and my wife's favorite hobby when we don't have the kids.
Hey, I'm a bit of a fan of that myself.
Just kidding, guys.
Generally, I don't like to be in bed by 4 p.m. I like to stay in bed until 4 p.m.
There you have it. And then you drink from like 4 to 8.
Yeah.
And then get back in bed.
See, Joe can't even drink right.
Come on. Hang or bang. Wait, what?
Some people. Up next is Alex Smiley, one of our fantastic sponsors.
Alex is hitting us with multiple characters, as always. No. Xander probably be subjected to an attempt to recruit me to the Eternal Circle for several hours.
Oh.
That sounds rough. Kenny, trick-or-treating with him as my quote-unquote kid. And Jim Connors, I don't think I'm allowed to disclose the activities involved for his sake. Alex, you left out one Mr. Randall Schwartz, and I'm not too pleased by this turn of events. So,
is that a classic wrestling character?
It is. It certainly is. So I'm going to need 10 role plays by next RP period. Thanks, sir.
And or, Alex, you're fired.
Just kidding. Alex joined the staff. He's never going to be fired.
Oh, shit. See, Joe, you didn't figure that loophole out, so you're fired.
That's right.
Up next, another good friend of the show and a former sponsor. It's MDG, Modern Day Gladiators. It's Warren.
For the LE, I'd probably just be the butt of Ethan Hale's jokes, and Grant Essex would be the butt of mine. At least until Ethan explained to Grant what was happening, and I'd get speared through a wall.
Oh, that's a lot of butts, man. Clean it up, Warren.
Warren's putting the butts in seats.
It's a family show, Warren.
Especially when you're playing Modern Day Gladiators, available to drive through RPG.
I don't know if it's still up, but if so, check out Warren's new Kickstarter for their new deal. Just a good project.
Magdalena, bring my son along for a family get-together. That's pretty close to the same age. Otherwise, I'd feel kind of weird.
Oh, intrigue.
Well, he is kind of weird, so that checks out.
Very true.
Deacon, we'd probably have some chats about all the stuff I get wrong, and I'd listen to his cool accent and realize one thing I got wrong. How wrong I got the Egyptian accent over the years.
Hey-o.
Warren, you'll get it right someday.
One day. I mean, hey, is it 10,000 hours or is it 20 years? I think 20. If you do something for 20 years, you'll get it right.
Well, he's coming up on it pretty quick.
And up next, generally someone I would not enjoy introducing, but he's got a really good answer. It's very apropos. It's Rossi Orton.
Ross bringing it home with his answer. What would he do with his wrestler? He wouldn't.
Best answer.
Yeah, he wouldn't hang out with his wrestler. He wouldn't hang out with Malik or the comments section. He's out. Or Harry Chest of classic-wrestling.com.
Oh.
Harry's currently hanging out with Tanner Spray. So
Tanner Spray.
Checks out.
See, y'all really on the nose over there.
We don't play when it comes to names, you know what I'm saying? We got Fearless and Feral Freddy Kilgore over here.
Triple fired Freddie Kilgore.
We're adding names as we go. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for this week's question of the week. Check it out on Twitter at the Efed Podcast. Pinned to the top of that profile. You can answer in the comments and be featured on the show or in our community, in our Discord. You can check it out in the Question of the Week channel. Get your answers in, and we'll talk about your answer here on the show in 2 weeks.
Hey everybody, this is Josh from ShoeProject.com. You are listening to the Efed Podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of the Efed Podcast interview series. Today we're joined by Joe. Joe recently on the unemployment line. Joe is the handler of Pat Cassidy, Laramie, Ned Reform, and Freddie Kilgore. He handled in feds like Defiance Wrestling, handling in Defiance Wrestling, Classic Wrestling, Shoot Pop Pop at Shoot Project, AVW, and more. We're going to talk to Joe today about all of those. Joe's a great guy, an angle player, a role player, and maybe a vampire. Joe, how you doing, buddy?
I am doing wonderful. I'm here for what I understand is my exit interview. I don't know if you've heard, there's some scuttlebutt and some rumors about my employment status, so
yes.
We can maybe get that straightened out, but I'm looking forward to it.
You can rest assured when Brian gets a hold of this, recording this opening episode, we're going to tear it up about you being fired, so...
I think he's going to edit my words, so I say something like, I quit all feds or something, like it'll be spliced together. Like.
He does like to play some games with some fun stuff, so you never know with Brian. But yes, Joe famously fired every week on the Efed Podcast.
It's a good running gag. I enjoy it.
It's a lot of fun. So, Joe, glad to have you on. We've been handling together now for a little over a year, or maybe two now, over at Defiance Wrestling.
Yeah, that's Defiance is where I made my big comeback, which we'll talk about, and then I branched out into Shoot, and then a little known place known as Classic Wrestling, which you may have mentioned.
I may have.
Twice. Yeah.
Classic-wrestling.com. Okay. Joe, let's talk about how you first got into wrestling. When did you become a fan?
So I obviously I've listened to like 80 of these. I knew this question was coming, and
yes,
the first time I remember reacting to wrestling, like it made me like excited, was I was 8 years old, and Shawn Michaels had just pieced out instead of losing the title as he's wanted to do. And they had a battle royal on Raw, and the cool thing about Raw back then was it was like booked backwards. So like the main event went on first, and then progressively it got to like jobber matches. So since I was 8, that was the only match I could let my mom let me stay up to watch. So I got to see the big marquee match at least. And they had a big battle royal. There were a lot of big names in it, and to crown a new Intercontinental Champion. And it came down to Razor Ramon, Rick Martel, and the Quebecers. And so the three bad guys obviously beat up on Razor, and little 8-year-old me was pissed. Like that was my first my first emotional reaction to wrestling, like, what the hell? Razor should win this. This is so fucked up. And of course, there's some heel miscommunication. Razor eliminates the Quebecers, and then next week it was Razor and Martel for the IC belt, and I made sure to watch that because I was invested at that point. And Razor won, and then after that, he was my guy, and wrestling was my thing. So
that's awesome. Great intro story. I love that you were immediately emotionally invested. That's so great. So talk about your favorite wrestlers then. Hit us with your Mount Rushmore favorite guys all time.
All time. So Razor, like, he set the template for me. Like, I need character. Like, not that I don't like or care about ring work, I do, but like I need more than just like flashy moves and like cool stuff.
Yeah.
And like I think Razor was like kind of a jack of all trades. Like he hit the character, he hit the mic work, he was good in the ring. And so I tend to gravitate towards those type of guys. So I would put him probably on there because he like got me into wrestling.
So the first person is going to be Razor Ramon, and that big rock's going to have the curly hair sticking down.
Yes, and he's like got his two thumbs. I guess there's no thumbs on Mount Rushmore, but
he'll have a toothpick.
Yeah, he's have a toothpick, yeah, and he's like, yeah, he's making that Razor face. And then so going forward, the cool thing about like, and you're in the same age group as I am, is like that.
Yep.
The WWF like grew up with us.
Yes.
Right? Like I got into it when it was cartoony, and then right as I was hitting puberty, the WWF was hitting puberty.
It's a great way to put it, yeah.
Yeah, and now it's kind of like circled back. It's like I'm having kids, and so it's like full circle. But I would say the next person on my Mount Rushmore is an obvious one, but it's Steve Austin.
Okay.
Just because I like Austin doesn't get enough credit for his ring work. Like people tend to think of those years when he was most popular, when he was just brawling through the crowd, but he was really solid in the ring, and he was obviously great in the mic, and the gimmick was great. So Steve Austin would be number 2. And then I'd probably say the guy who got me back into wrestling after I kind of had given up on it would be CM Punk, would be number 3.
There you go.
And Punk is like, people tend to think of him as kind of indie because he made his name on the indies, but he really is kind of an old school guy, like in the ring. And I don't think you can touch him on the mic. And obviously he works the gimmick, so he kind of fits that mold. And then the 4th one, I don't know. That one, that can depend on the mood. I could say Piper. I could say Flair. I could say Eddie Guerrero. Probably not Flair, because we just found out that he's a rapist, right? So I'm not going to put him on there. I'll say Guerrero. I'll say Eddie. So
yeah, if you put Flair up there, he might have to come right back down.
Yeah, he's not going to be up there for long. Get some dynamite. So Eddie will be the 4th.
There you go. So we got Razor, Steve Austin, Eddie Guerrero, and I'm missing one.
CM Punk.
CM Punk, who is now making his big comeback.
Yes, he did it again in 2011. He pulled me back into wrestling, and I had more or less given up on modern wrestling until he made his return, and now I'm a pretty loyal AEW watcher since he returned. So he got me again.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So when and how did you find e-wrestling then? Similar
to a lot of stories I hear on here, AOL was my intro.
Yeah.
It was the fall of '99, so I was 14, and the AOL wrestling chat room, that was my spot. Like, that was where you could find me. My grandma had internet. We didn't have it at home yet, so I'd take the bus from school. I'd go to her house, and I would sit on the computer for 4 or 5 hours, quote unquote, doing homework.
She don't know any different. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was in the AOL wrestling room talking about DX or whatever. And if any, like, I'm sure a lot of people listening are familiar with AOL, but just in case you're not, like, in those chat rooms, a third of the people would be actually having a productive conversation about the topic. Another third of them would be just like yelling random like non sequiturs, like the Xbox, and like popping in and out and like contributing nothing to the conversation. And then the last third would be either trying to sell you something or like have sex with you, right? The age, sex, location. What's your age?
I remember these very well. Yes.
Yeah. So in the wrestling chat, a lot of the people trying to sell would be coming in to just plug their Efed, right? They'd paste the little blurb and be like, join my Efed. And I ignored it for a long time because I was a pretty good kid about like trying to like not talk to strangers on the internet. But I eventually got curious and I asked somebody about what that was and they explained it to me. And I went nuts for it. Like I'm the type of person that when I really enjoy something, I don't want to just consume it. Like I want to try like making it. Like when I was into comic books as a kid, I wanted to draw my own comic book. When I, really liked the movie, I wanted to write my own screenplay. So when I got into wrestling, I wanted to make wrestling. I wanted to make a wrestling show with wrestlers and stories. And when video games gave us the ability to make our own wrestlers for the first time, that blew my mind, right? Like I could just create a brand new wrestler and I could see him and I could give him moves. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. And I would make like whole rosters. I'd have like the cocky heel. I'd have like the heartthrob babyface tag team. Like I leaned into the tropes. So
much like we do now. Yeah.
Yeah. So when this AOL dude was like, you can take those guys you made and you can like cut promos as them, I was like, sign me up. Like, let's do this. And so I did it for like a year, and I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir for you and everyone listening, but it was like horrendous. It was, fire, GeoCities, colored boards, bad spelling.
Feds closing and opening at a whim.
Oh,
yes.
God, I couldn't even tell you any of them. Like, it's just a sea of like nonsense that first year. And I kind of decided that first year that I thought e-wrestling was stupid. Like, I was like... I would log on. I would see if anybody talked shit. If they did, I would try to talk shit back in character. And then I would wait and see what the results were. And the results were always like misspelled. And like my character might be acting completely out of character. And I'd be like, what the hell is this? And so I was like, this is not like as creatively fun as I thought it would be.
Yeah.
And then summer of 2000, I stumbled on my first Angle Fed, which I didn't know what that was at the time, but it had a proper website. It had like some history. Like I could go back and look at old cards that had been going for a little while. It was called Appalachian Valley Wrestling, and it had a backstory where it was like this little ECW rogue promotion based out of Kentucky, and they would like run shows and like Hooters and stuff. And I was immediately intrigued. I was like, oh, this isn't just a message board. Like this is like they've tried to build like a real world here. And I started poking around and I read the cards and there was no colors, which is great. And the first card I read, the heel champ comes out and he starts talking about like at the pay-per-view, I beat up my old stablemate friend and I broke his neck. I don't feel bad about it. And then the third guy in that stable jumps the railing and like attacks him and they brawl and the announcers are like, they're going to wrestle for the title later. And I'm just like, oh my God, like, I didn't know that this game could actually be like a real wrestling. Like, I just thought it was poorly written simulated results. I was like, this is blowing my mind. So I was like, I have to apply. But I had a problem that I was self-aware enough to know that I was reading some shit by some really good writers. And I was 15. I was about to be a sophomore in high school.
You're seriously about to overstep your bounds.
I was like, I can't hang. They're writing like angles about real stuff. And I was like, the most I've ever done is drive my bike to the river. Like, I don't know. Like, and
so I just started shaving.
Yeah. Like, what am I going to talk about? Like, and I found out when I joined that they were all basically in college. And to me at the time, that was like, an adult. Like, oh my God. So I was super intimidated, and I was like, I really want to do this, but I don't think I'm good enough. And I had a stroke of genius when I decided that I was going to listen to my creative writing teacher's advice. She taught me to write what you know, because if you write something you know anything about, it's very clearly fake. And I said, if I feel like a naive little out of place kid, that's what the character is going to be. I'm gonna make a character that's like a naive kind of simpleton who just wants to be like, gee guys, let's do this. And that way I'll never be in a situation where I feel like I'm in over my head with story, because that's what I feel like. So I made Laramie, and he was this Spike Dudley-ish, scrawny dude who would come to the ring in sweatpants and a t-shirt. He came out to the Why Can't We Be Friends? He came out with that song.
It's a great gimmick.
His finisher was the lucky shot. It was the diving headbutt, and the joke was he would never hit it. Like, he'd make a big show of going for it and just face plant every time. And so it was funny, but I was able to play it also sincere, because I made him a really nice guy. And in the Attitude Era, everybody was being stone cold. So it stood out a little bit, and it got me through to the point where I could write some stuff, because if you're funny enough, I feel like people overlook quality. So Laramie was my guy, and I joined and I accepted, and they hooked me up with an angle partner, and we mapped out. I'll never forget this dude. His name was Mike King, and he was in school to write screenplays. That's what he was in school for in college. And he taught me so much as a 15-year-old kid about structuring story. I was like, holy shit, dude. And we mapped out this 8-month angle where my goofy little Laramie would get taken advantage of by his heel, who would abuse Laramie, but would throw him in a line of fire and keep him around and just treat him like crap. And then eventually Laramie would try to fight back and get squashed, but then he'd come back, and in the end it would end with Laramie, triumphant. And this was legit 9-10 months of story, and we followed through the whole thing, every show.
There you go.
Yeah, and it was awesome. And when it was done, Laramie was the cruiserweight champion, and I had found my Fed, and I was like, this is it. I'm never leaving this place. So I still have fond memory. That's still the longest story I probably ever told. So I have some. Yeah,
your first angle is not only a successful one, but it's a very long, detailed story.
Yeah, and that's what I was looking for, right? I wasn't looking for. Some people are shit talkers. Some people want to win, and I totally respect that. But I'm just get me with somebody else who's creative, and let's brainstorm and let's just execute it, And that's I think when the game is the best. And I was lucky enough to find it right away. So.
I mean, back then the angles were, hey, I'll beat you, you beat me, and then we'll see what happens at the pay-per-view. Maybe the staff will decide. So yeah, you're going into a whole different level of detail with your stuff, which is great.
Yeah.
That's the basis of what angle feds are today.
Yeah, for sure.
So you're in AVW, and you're enjoying your time as cruiserweight champion. Does Laramie get any higher than that?
He doesn't. He got some shots at their IC belts, and what ended up being the last show, he actually got a shot at the world belt, and it was Triple H versus Taka Michinoku. Where it was the big bad heel, took him lightly, and he almost did an upset, but he ended up losing. But he was a pretty established character. But in summer of 2002, the Fed had graduated from college and was I'm going to go off and be a grown-up now.
I'll leave you Peter Pan boys over here.
Yeah, most of the other people in there were in the same kind of boat. So AVW just kind of quietly closed up that summer. And I was going into my senior year of high school, and I had a car and my first job and friends, and I started to talk to girls, and Efeding could not compare.
Suddenly, not so much time for sitting on the internet.
Yeah, it was that was fun, but I got bigger fish to fry. So, so I put it away, and I put it away in the summer of 2002. It didn't come back to the summer of 2020. So,
whoa, holy cow!
A little 18-year hiatus to recharge the batteries,
I guess so. Yeah, I guess that'll really refresh the storylines in your mind.
Yeah.
So you come back to e-wrestling in 2020, and let's start over. How did you find e-wrestling again in 2020?
Yeah, so I hadn't thought about it in forever, because I left when I was 17, and now I'm 30.
18 years later. Yeah, well, how does it come up in your head?
So COVID happens, and I'm working from home, and I decided that if I'm going to work from home, I'm going to have something on in the background. That's one of the only perks from working from home. And so I decided that I was going to refire up my WWE Network subscription that I had canceled. I was going to start from the first Raw, and I was just going to let it play.
Awesome.
And the nice thing about wrestling is sometimes you can pay attention, sometimes you don't have to. It's fine. It's a good background thing to have on.
Yeah.
And so, but as I was doing it, and like this went on from March to like the end of May. Like I got a lot of rosin. I covered a lot of years. And as I'm doing it, I'm like finding myself watching more and more, and I'm remembering like, oh yeah, like I did like wrestling, and I remember why. Like I remember this stuff and like how I felt about it as a kid. And as that's happening, I'm also, my only hobby is going for walks, because nothing's open, and I'm in a house with, at the time my son wasn't even 1. And I'm on Zoom calls sometimes 9-10 hours a day, because I'm teaching on Zoom and then I have classes at night. And so my poor wife is taking the brunt of the child. So I try to relieve her when I can and throw the kid in the stroller, and we take like long walks around the neighborhood. So I was just walking the hell out of this town, and that got me into listening to podcasts. And at some point, I can't remember how, I stumbled upon the fact that there was a podcast dedicated to Efeds, believe it or not. As crazy as that sounds. And it's so funny, dude. Like, before I hit play on the first one, I totally expected it to fire up and to hear like prepubescent 15-year-old voice being like, my guy can gonna kick your ass. Like, that's what I expected.
And that's what you're hoping for, because that sounds entertaining, kind of.
Yeah, I was like, I'm gonna laugh at these kids today and see what they're doing. But lo and behold, it was like professionally done with an intro and music and a host and good sound quality and adults talking about e-fetting. And I started listening, and I realized that a lot of people you're interviewing were doing it back when I was, and I was like, this is actually kind of cool. Like, just because, you know, I'm sitting in front of a computer all day, like, why not? And also, I'm like my job right now, I'm an English teacher, and it's not a bad idea to keep the creative writing, you know, skills sharp by using them. So I was like, sounds like a win-win. So I dived back in 18 years later.
Well, that's awesome. I'm sure you told me at one point, but I didn't remember that it was the podcast that got you into it.
Yeah, I can't remember the first episode I listened to. It's been lost to my memory, but I listened to a few before I decided to do it. But I had the stroller, and I was just walking around listening to it. That was my gig. Well,
I appreciate that my sultry voice got you back into e-wrestling. And we gifted the world with Joe back in e-wrestling. I'm so excited about that. Brian, we hired Joe.
You created the monster, Brian. You only have yourself to blame, buddy.
You hired him. You signed the paperwork. You sent him through HR. You put him in uniform. You got him on board, and here we are. So
that is all hearsay, and I talked to Joe about it. We worked it all out, and now I'm going to quickly interject a statement from Joe.
I quit all feds.
Well, you heard it, folks. So anyway, back to the interview as scheduled.
No, I'm so glad to hear that, Joe. That's awesome. It's a great reintroduction to e-wrestling, and I'm glad that we could create a pathway. I've heard a couple of those stories now, and it's always really cool to hear.
Yeah, and
and now you're on the show.
And now I'm on the show. It's like a year and a half or so later. Here we are. But the first advertisement on the show was for Defiance.
Yes.
Like, that was the first one every time.
Obs.
And it hyped it up big. You know, the most experienced players in the game. And I was like, okay. So I'm like, all right, this is the first one I'm going to check out. And I go to check it out, and I see, like, once I see the layout, like, it's like, submit your arc talk where you plan with your partner. And I'm like, holy shit, like, this is it, right? Like, this
next level. Yeah,
yeah. And I was like, this is exactly what I thought what I found, like, in ABW. I was like, I can't believe this is like tailor made for exactly what I want to do. But I was super intimidated again, because those of you listening who don't know the Defiance application process, you post your application, and then everybody weighs in their thoughts.
Everybody votes. Yes.
Yeah, everybody votes. And I'm looking through, and I didn't I'm looking through the archives, and I'm just seeing like people like tear apps apart. I'm like, all these guys have been playing this like so long, and I haven't been doing it. Like, they're gonna like talk so much shit, but I'm gonna do it anyway. And it's funny, I don't think I ever told you this either, but you indirectly had a big influence on who I applied as.
Oh.
Because I'm sure we'll talk about the character later, but I originally was going to be Ned Reform. I spent my whole like Laramie phase as like an underdog, lovable baby face, and I wanted to be a chicken shit shit talking heel. Like, that's what I want to do. But then I see that the head guy, as I do my research, the head guy is like currently in the middle of a title run where he's being the chicken shit heel.
Yes.
And you may have heard of him. And I'm like, it doesn't make any sense to come in as like a knockoff version of what the champ is doing. And Ned Reform and Mikey Unlikely are different characters, but I feel like, they have different gimmicks, but if you're that kind of like heel, your presentation's similar,
Yeah,
like,
absolutely. There's only so many ways you can get out of a situation as a slimy heel.
Right. So I was like, it doesn't make, I feel like that's the recipe for getting lost in the shuffle to me. If you come in and just do a second-rate version of what like the top person is doing. So
you're already doing 10 times more thinking than most Efed applicants.
Yeah. As you can tell, I overthink shit like this, but so I was like, I'm going to go opposite direction. Mikey Unlikely, top guy. He's the cocky Hollywood babyface, heel, excuse me.
Yep.
I'm going to go gritty working class babyface. So I put Reform to bed for a little bit, and I created Pat Cassidy, and that's how he came about.
And so you create a new character for Defiance, you apply, and how did your application process go? Well, first, before you tell us your initial background thoughts on Pat Cassidy.
Yeah, so I wanted to go working class hero, and I knew Defiance already had quite a few, so I wasn't breaking the mold there. But every movie, I'm from Massachusetts, and every movie about Boston is about a working class kid from South Boston who is poor, gets in trouble with the law, and has a smart mouth, but has a heart of gold. Like, that's every movie, and he's played by Ben Affleck or Matt Damon, or what's the other one? Marky Mark. What's his?
Mark Wahlberg.
There you go. Yeah, it's one of them. And I was like, well, that's a trope in movies, but I've never seen that represented in wrestling. Like, maybe Cena tried to pull it off because he's kind of from Boston, but I don't think that's what he was going.
He wasn't even that. He was kind of clean cut.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm gonna take that, and I'm just gonna make an e-wrestling character, and it's gonna be freaking rogue kind of scrappy kid who likes to drink, and likes to party, and likes to fight, but he's a babyface because he's not really a dick, even though he's kind of rough around the edges, and that was the genesis of Pat Cassidy. So
that's awesome, and it molded into so much more later on. But before we get there, the application process, you brought it up. In Defiance, you have to get 4 more yes than no votes. So not just 4 yeses. Out of 6 votes, 4 have to be yeses.
Yeah, you can be put in the hole.
Yes.
Yeah.
Real quick.
Yeah. And so I put it up, and I was like, I'm a 35-year-old man with a job. I was like, I'm not going to take it too seriously if they like talk shit, but my pride would be a little wounded. But then I was like, I built this up in my mind, and like by noon the next day, they were like, yeah, sure, you're in. I was like, okay, cool.
Wasn't too hard for you.
No, it wasn't. Good. Luckily, I came along in like the Roland and Seth and Creepy Justin era. They were like, oh yeah, this is great.
We'll see. And now I'm going to yell at Defiance because they gave me a hard time.
Yeah, I think yours is one of the ones I saw. They were like, I don't know about this.
All right. Well, you're in Defiance now. Pat Cassidy is born. Talk about early Defiance impressions and building arcs and partners and so on and so forth.
It was tough because e-wrestling is a social game, and here I am, like, not a soul knows who I am, and I don't know who anybody is, right? I'm like, hey, I played this in 2002, and no one I played with still exists as far as I know. So it's tough to like just hop in, but I just decided I was gonna just write the character a little bit and not commit to any stories and just see if it clicked with people. And eventually I started getting messages on Discord from people who were established being like, hey, we should have our characters be in a bar together. And I was like, all right, I think it's working on some level, and people are and then I got a message from Roland, who was like, I got an idea for a story, and that was Cassidy's first story, and that was really what put him on the map, the Connor Fuse and Connor Fuse versus Pat Cassidy and Trash Can Tim.
Yes,
that was a big one. Yeah, ended with a karaoke machine broken over Cassidy's head. But I think that was like, people seem to be a fan of the segment, the go home segment, and then the pay-per-view match was pretty fun to write, and then I felt like he kind of arrived after that. So,
and Pat Cassidy caught on quickly with his almost Adam Page like drinking.
Yeah, and I didn't even know. Like, this is before AEW, and I'm sure Adam Page is probably doing that for a long time, but I didn't know who he was, so I'm gonna say he copied me.
Yeah,
But,
that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah,
Like, we're gonna go with that.
The idea is like Cassidy, like he's not a comedy character. Like in the ring, he wants to win. He's a good wrestler.
Yeah.
But it's business, right? You can wrestle, and as long as you don't start a blood feud with him, he's like, all right, dude, we're off the clock now. Let's go grab a pint. Like, that's kind of the character I envisioned. That I tried to write the kind of person that people would want to hang out with if he was real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of the Defiance segments were, or the uncut segments or whatever, was people hanging out backstage or people going to a bar together.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it fit in really well. Yeah.
So, Pat Cassidy, talk about your successes in Defiance overall.
So after that first arc, there's a new. I got in right before like Defiance blew up. Like, I was one of the last ones to be like, hey, when the roster was kind of thin, and then like 2 months later, it was like there wasn't enough room for everybody. And one of the people that applied was this guy named Brock Newblood.
Yes.
And I totally like. Now, Gorman's my buddy now, I can say it, but I got really petty and territorial because he posted his app and he was like, Brock Newblood, working class hero, likes to have beer after his match. And I'm like, oh, yeah? Okay. Like,
look at my app, buddy.
Yeah, I was like, that's a really new thing for Defiance, huh? You're really bringing a lot to the table there.
Bro, I got to tell you real quick. I had the same exact situation with Elise Aries and the D. When they joined, when Pop Culture Phenoms joined Defiance, they said, oh, we're movie stars, but we're like C-listers and we're cocky. And I'm like, bro, that's literally my gimmick. Like, what are you doing? Have you read anything?
Like, I'm already here.
I immediately complained to staff. And then we became best of friends and in a stable together.
Yeah, and it's petty, but it kind of hurts your feelings that everybody piles on like, oh, yeah, come on in. You're like, what the hell?
Yeah,
like,
do I mean nothing to you people?
Yeah. Am I not here? Like, what? Yeah. But he got accepted and he reached out and he was like, our characters seem pretty similar. We should do something together. And we did a segment where Brock was new and Cassidy's like, welcome, cheers. And then it went really well. He's like, want to do another one? And I was like, sure. And then after that, we we're like, want to just do this forever? And I'm like, yeah, let's do that. So the Saturday night specials were born, and they've been together ever since. Current Defiance Tag Team Champions. So that team has definitely been Cassidy's biggest success.
Easily, yeah. The highlight of Pat Cassidy and Defiance has been the Saturday night specials. I was wearing the T-shirt myself last night.
Oh yeah, I wore it. I wore it on purpose on vacation so that it would be in family photos forever. It's not going anywhere.
No, perfect. That's awesome. Yeah. So, efedtees.com. Okay, sorry, I got to sneak that in there. You're in the SNS. You guys win the tag team titles. You have all these successes. Has that been the best part of Defiance? Working with Brock.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Because he is, first of all, he's a great dude.
Working with Gorman, I'm sorry.
Sorry, what's that?
I said working with Gorman, sorry.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know, yeah. Brock Gorman, as I call him. Yeah, and we have similar tastes in wrestling. So, like, it's one of those things where we pitch each other ideas and the other one has already kind of thought about it. So it's just like the writing chemistry is good.
Yeah.
And it's also just super easy. Like, very few people want to do tag teams.
It's so much fun when you got a good writing partner.
That's so much fun. And it's like, it's also like you can trade off the work. Like sometimes Logan's having a rough week and I'm like, I got you, and like vice versa. So,
or you're both on and it's like a 50-50 job and it's still easier. So I always like writing the bruvs for that reason, because one, you roll off the other person if you have chemistry, and two, it's easier. TBH.
It's and you don't have a lot of competition because it's just like everybody wants to be a single star because that's the way wrestling is done. So it's like you can just, if you carve out a niche and you're a solid tag team, like you're not going anywhere ever. Like you're always in demand, you know. So
you're always
fired, which you know,
which you do all the time. No, and it's easy to achieve a legendary status almost.
No, that's totally, because like you just hold the belts for a while, and you're like, we're the best tag team ever, and you kind of are by default. So.
It's a beautiful thing. Well, that wasn't the end for you, Joe. You branched off of Defiance a bit, and you reached out and found Shoot Wrestling, or Shoot Project, I'm sorry.
Yes, I did, and I don't want to keep putting your podcast over because it's going to seem insincere. You asked a question of the week where you were like, what's one thing in e-fetting that you'd want to try but never have? And I think I was like, I would like to do a video game thing, but I don't own any video games and I'm not going to. And Josh from the Shoot Project shot me a message and was like, you don't have to. Like, we'll make the character for you. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I had Reform in my back pocket, and I really wanted to write a heel, and Defiance was standing room only. So,
yeah.
and I hadn't been there long enough to feel like I could be like, can I have a second character? So I brought Ned Reform to Shoot Projects and debuted him there. And that's really where I found his voice. And that's just such a good atmosphere, like such a great group of guys. Like, I think I could stop being active and Shoot and just like want to hang out in their Discord forever, because it's just like, solid group. And they took to Reform, and he got over really well over there. And I'm still there to this day. I've got Cassidy there, and Reform may or may not be lurking in the shadows. We'll see.
There you go. Spoiler alert. No. Yeah, Shoot Project has been a great partner for us at the EFED podcast. I've enjoyed talking to him. Actually, you're pretty close to following directly after the interview of Josh over at Shoot Project.
Right.
And it's been a lot of fun just hanging out in their Discord, chatting with them. And then we did the top 100, and those guys showed out.
Yes. Yeah. And it's like, the core group has been like friends since like the 90s. Like, they've been playing this game forever. So like Shoot Project is just, these guys it's just such a tight knit, relaxed group. And it's just really cool to just hang out and shoot the shit with them. So
no pun intended. Check out shootproject.com or at Shoot Project on Twitter, and of course, Shoot Pop Pop. Joe, Ned Reform has reappeared in Shoot Project. Where else has he reappeared?
I eventually did bring him to Defiance when
Yes.
I felt I had been around long enough to be like, hey, what do you think about a second character? And also just because, like, I love Shoot Project, and I think it's really interesting to do the video game thing. But if you're going to write a chicken shit heel, like, you need that guy to be begging off in matches. You need that guy to be trying to get count out victories. You need that guy to be
reaching
stalling
for the ropes and
all
ducking
the stuff
between
you
them.
can't do in a video game.
Right.
And so I was like, I need to take Reform to a place where I can write his matches. So I brought him to Defiance so I could get a feel of how he was in the ring, and he's been there ever since. And I'm gearing up next arc for something really exciting with him that I won't spoil, because it'll just be getting going probably when this comes out. But I've gotten a lot of compliments on him over there too, so I feel like he's getting over pretty well. And he's just the arrogant intellectual. He's every jerk I've worked with in the academic world who thinks that they're smarter than they are. And that person really annoys me, so I just take my annoyance and I just channel it into this pain in the ass character. So
That's beautiful. So when I join, I'm going to be like, but wait, there's this guy.
yeah.
I'm going to immediately be mad at you again, Joe. And and I can just have you fired, so it's that easy.
Bring Mikey back and we'll have a match, and they can just both stall for 15 minutes and time limit draw.
We'll do like a mirror gimmick where we both duck through the ropes at the same time. See, great ideas. And I enjoyed our match that we had right before I left Defiance, of course, the Hollywood Bruvs versus the Saturday Night Specials.
Dude, that was so much fun. And it was like, I mean, obviously, like, you could tell that, like, you were winding up. So I knew, like, you're coming to the end. But in my mind, someday, I hope there's room for an extended Saturday Night Specials Hollywood Bruvs program, just because
I would absolutely love it.
They're mirror opposites, like the gimmicks, like it just, there's so many ways we could take it. And I just feel like the four of us would be super fun.
We could be really great. Stevie's taking a break from e-wrestling period right now, unfortunately. So
yeah,
we'll see when he comes back, and I'll see if I can't talk him into it. Actually, that's how I did talk him back into it. It was like, hey, let's just do the Bruvs again. It's easy.
yeah. There you go. Like, you can you can hop in every so often, and I can carry you. Like sell it like that.
Perfect. All right. So that brings us to the last destination, I believe, on your stops. That is classic-wrestling.com. And Joe, we appreciate you over there because you've been with us from the very jump.
Well, I was right when you started dropping little tidbits of information. I had moved on from watching Raw to watching Saturday night's main event.
Yes, 80s wrestling. Here we go.
Yes. And I really wanted to write Hulk Hogan. Like just yelling, just like coked up, just like saying ridiculous shit. Like, I'm going to swim across the Atlantic Ocean and eat a volcano or like, whatever.
Isn't it crazy how when you're an e-wrestler, you also, when you watch wrestling, you're like, how would I write that? What would I do with that?
Yeah. And it looks like fun, right? Imagine being Hulk Hogan and being like, here's 5 minutes, say something ridiculous. And just, like, it just looks like fun. And so, but I was like, anywhere I take that, it's a parody, right? It's a caricature because like that's 100%. Not what wrestling is anymore.
Yeah.
And then you were like, guess what? I'm opening an 80s
I'm opening a caricature of an Efed.
Oh, it was like the heavens opened and the light shined down. I was like, this is perfect. So, Freddie Kilgore is my attempt at Hulk Hogan, and everyone always says Ultimate Warrior, which I'm okay with. I get it, the face paint, but yeah, I also really fucking hate the Ultimate Warrior. So.
Well, I think you're not as Ultimate Warrior as Lord Colossus is.
Yeah. And I think like people sleep on Hogan's craziness because Warrior was just so out there. But I try to have Freddie say crazy stuff that still makes sense, which is, I think, more Hulk Hogan Macho Man territory. Right? Whereas Warrior was just like incomprehensible. So
when I'm hanging and banging in the gym, brother, I'm going to take you out and I'm going to body slam you off of Mount Fuji.
He in WrestleMania when he told Donald Trump to hop on his back so he could swim across the Atlantic Ocean, like that kind of shit. Like that's what I want to like say.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Freddie Kilgore, he's just this bombastic, wild superhero Hulk Hogan type. The wild man thing is just really his gimmick to be able to say here's who I am, but really I'm being Hulk Hogan whenever I write him, and I have so much fun with it. And I told myself I'd never join a roleplay fed ever again because in my mind roleplay feds are like it's just those shitty like GeoCities ones.
Shoot promos at each other.
Yeah, which I know isn't the way it always is, and that's not fair, but I was like, I'm never doing roleplay ever again. But I made the one exception because of the concept, and also because it's just the word limit and the schedule is really easy. And it's easy to do a roleplay in 750 words when you're just yelling at Mean Gene Okerlund. So
and I enjoy the situations you put Freddie Kilgore in on top of a mountain or fireside or whatever the case.
Or doing the G.I. Joe PSAs, the more you know.
But busting through and helping the kid out of the locker and beating the bully up. It's so good. I love the character, and the way you write him is he feels bigger than life. He feels like a main eventer just from your promos. I mean, you make him feel like he's big, whereas some characters you kind of have to build him up. And
Thank you.
And it's really cool. Freddie Kilgore is one of my favorite characters in the Fed, and I'm not trying to be biased. Obviously, you've lost a couple matches, but you were also one of the first champions that we had, and the Premier American Championship.
First Premier American Champion, and I also I don't know if you as a Fed head can tell that you probably can. I'm fighting my angle tendencies so hard every time.
Well, yeah, because you sent me an arc doc at the beginning.
Yeah, I know. I was like, I want to know where this is going, and
no, but I like it because in Roleplay Fed, I can't go through and set everybody up with opponents, and I mean, obviously I'm booking cards, but it's up to you to make storylines work. Right.
And I kind of felt like, and I tried to plan for contingencies, but if I lose here,
you did it very well. Yeah.
But I like that last roleplay I did. It was just purely an angle. It was just here's how Kilgore got hurt, and now his valet is going to cry about it because I was like, I want to progress the story. I'm probably not going to win, but
which is so good because the character is hurt, so he doesn't even show up in his own roleplay. The valet roleplays for him. It was, Magnifico.
Thank you. Yeah. No, I'm trying to remember that like I should care about the competitive aspect and not just the story, but I keep getting drawn back into what I know. So
Yep. So no, it's been great though, and your feud with Shujin Yama, the current premier American champion, has been great, and I expect we're going to see another clash here shortly. Spoiler alert.
Does this come out?
This will be
after the
post.
pay-per-view?
This will be probably before the pay-per-view, but post
Okay.
go home, so everybody will be well aware by now.
Okay. I won't say. All right. I was going to spoil something, but I won't.
No spoilers on the Efed podcast, not yet. Maybe for other people's feds, but I'm not going to spoil my fed. All right. Well, Joe, I mean, right now you're leading up. You were the first Premier American champion. You're vying for that championship again, and you're fighting against Shujin Yama. Where do you see Feral Freddy Kilgore going from here?
I see Freddy Kilgore. The nice thing about the character is I just think he's going to keep slaying monsters.
There you go.
You know, even if a championship isn't involved, like that's Hulk Hogan's the easiest guy to book.
Book him with a big guy.
Give him a dastardly bad guy,
Yep.
and let him do his thing. So as long as there's some strong personality heels in the Fed, I'm not worried. I think Kilgore is going to just do his thing and hopefully shine pretty brightly. So
I love it. Freddie Kilgore, check him out at classic-wrestling.com. And you've been a great addition to the EFED podcast Discord community. You've been a great addition to Defiance. Obviously, I'm not there anymore, but I'm still part of the Discord and had a good time talking to you and getting to know you over the last year. And again, now in Classic, it's been fun having you as a handler. So, Joe, we really appreciate you.
thank you. Yeah, it's nice to have stumbled back upon this. And even like real life is starting to be normal again, which does cut down a little bit on the time. But
For sure.
I think I've managed to find my way into 3 feds that are not super time demanding. So I think it might be okay. So
Well, good. Well, hey,
Yeah.
before we let you go, we've got a whole litany of questions from the crowd. I hope you're ready for them.
let's do it.
We asked to drop your questions for Joe on Twitter and on Discord. And on the Twitter machine, we got our good friend Ryan Scott.
Oh, I got a Twitter response?
You got a Twitter response. It's
geez.
Ryan Scott Rants,
Okay.
our good friend Scott in Defiance.
Editor of the Defiant.
Yes, editor of the Defiant.
Yeah.
Question 1, who has been your favorite character to handle?
Oh, geez. Here I thought I was all prepared.
I'm going to hit you with the backstage attack.
I'm going to say currently Cassidy, because he's got the most backstory and he's tied with Kilgore is the most fun to write, but he's got more going on. So
There you go. Will there be any more snow files?
oh yeah, I was doing so this is in the COVID era when I had
All the
moving
time in
slowly.
the world, yeah.
Yeah, I was writing these like monthly columns about either characters or stories in Defiance that I just thought were cool, and that just kind of got sacrificed as real life kicks back up. But I guess never say never. We'll see.
What would Pat Cassidy's dream match be in Defiance?
Pat Cassidy's or mine?
It says Pat Cassidy.
Pat Cassidy versus a good bottle of whiskey, I think, is always his dream match.
Well, he also asked same question for Ned Reform.
Ned Reform would like to punch every fan in the face individually. That would be him versus every fan.
There you go. Every one of the faithful.
Yeah, just line up and just come up.
Do you have any other new ideas for the Defiant you wouldn't mind seeing?
Oh, you're just gonna fish for ideas on the podcast. That's what you're gonna do.
New
Scott?
low,
All right.
Scott. New low.
I've always wanted with Tillinghast, and I know Roland has. I will talk about him because Roland has something, but I've always wanted to do like a fake dirt sheet where it's like the background, like like Mikey Unlikely is holding down younger talent. He's using a stroke, like stuff that clearly just doesn't make any sense and is made up. But I was always afraid people would get pissed about it.
No,
But
yeah, I get that.
That was the thing I always wanted to do.
That'd be really cool. Yeah. If people could handle it. All right. On Discord, we got people. Speaking of people who can handle it, it's Megan. Leader of 5BW, Meg, wants to know who would win in a fight, Pat, Laramie, Ned, or Freddie?
Freddie Kilgore. He doesn't do jobs, brother.
The big man. I like it. Favorite Halloween movie?
Medea's Halloween. I don't know. What's a Halloween movie? Halloween. Let's say Halloween.
There you
That's
go.
my favorite Halloween movie.
Halloween. Up next is Brock. Are you fired?
All right. Well, unfortunately, the beginning of this podcast, I hate to ruin the magic, but the beginning of this podcast is recorded after my interview. But I'm going to have to assume that, yes, I am. I'm just going to predict.
You will be fired, I assure you.
Yeah.
Next question. Are you still fired? Absolutely, yes.
No, I think I weaseled back in the last 10 seconds.
Well, once Brian hears that Brian actually hired Joe, then he's going to have to, figure out how he can fire the guy he hired. It's his. It's
not a good look on him, huh?
No, he put his neck on the line for you, Joe, and now he's trying to cut. He's trying to cut himself, and I'm not going to be a party in that. I'll tell you that. Next question: how many times has Brian fired you?
Oh, I don't know. I've lost track.
We're 83 episodes in, so probably 95 times.
95 sounds right.
Why or how do you keep getting back in?
Brian's too lazy to fill out the proper paperwork.
Believe that. So don't ask the IRS. Up next, why does Brian hate all the good ideas Def Chat voice chat comes up with?
I think Brian feels like his role has to be the stern father, because if he doesn't, it will just be a complete circus dumpster fire. So he has to stomp out your kind of out there ideas. That's my theory.
I completely agree with that theory. Do you think Brian kicked me out of Defcord when I quit so I'd stop contributing to the shenanigans?
I don't know. You got kicked out? No one gets kicked out.
His next question is, am I a martyr?
Maybe. People linger as alumni for ever. You must have done something really annoying, huh? Yeah, maybe you are a martyr. Maybe you took one for the team. Good job, Brock.
Brock is a martyr. He's a deaf martyr. I like it. Who would play your characters in a major motion picture? Good question.
Cassidy would be Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah.
Ned Reform would be bald, bearded Tom Hardy. Freddie Kilgore would be Chris Hemsworth.
I could see it.
Yeah.
Let's see where we at with Brock. He's got so many questions. If you could pick one person to feud with in Defiance and not have interference from Brian with your ideas, who would it be and why?
So I'll say this. I'll say this about the man who doesn't value my employment. I've never gotten crap from Brian about any of my ideas. Now, maybe that means he's not reading them. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't know my ideas. But he's never stepped in. So I'll say that in his defense.
That's because he thought you were fired a long time ago.
So if I could pick one person to feud with, I've always wanted to do a Pat Cassidy, Seth's character, Alvaro de Vargas one-on-one deal. Just
Great
because,
character.
Yeah, and he's like Razor Ramon resurrected, and that's my dude. So I've always wanted to make that happen.
If you could work with one person in classic wrestling and angle a feud, who would it be, and why is it always the Bus?
Ooh, the Bus. We'd have to turn the Bus heel, which I'm not sure if that's possible.
I don't know if that's going to happen. So
yeah.
How can you turn the honk heel?
Yeah, I would say if it's an angle, maybe Lord Colossus.
Oh. Maybe that's the next giant for...
Yeah, just because that's the powerhouse, and we could do some cool stuff with... Yeah, for sure. I'm going to say Lord Colossus.
If NFL Hall of Famer and hater of all things Cincinnati Bengal related, Jerome the Bus Bettis and the Bus were to have a bus off, who would win?
The fans.
The fans would absolutely win. His next question, what is a bus off in your mind?
I think it's...
Let your creative flag fly, Joe.
Two people standing in what I assume is like the sumo position, circling each other, saying, I'm a bus, I'm a bus, I'm a bus. And the first one to walk away loses. That's what I think.
Oh, my God. The fans do not win. I take it back. Roland's up next. What character do you most identify with? Pat Cassidy, Ned Reform, or Count Novick? So rumor has it, Joe, you are a vampire.
Yeah, Novick. I wanted to make a jobber that was silly, so I made a vampire.
I noticed
he leans in.
we did record this for the evening and not the daytime.
Yes, and that would have to be my answer. No. Truthfully, like, I actually think, like, serious answer. I think when I'm at my best and most social and outgoing, I think I am Cassidy-esque, and when I'm like not at my best and I am feeling like everybody's stupid and I hate everybody, I'm maybe more reformist. So I think they're both me in different ways. And Count Novik is a vampire, so
there you go.
Yeah.
You do like to suck some blood every once in a while.
Yeah,
So what brought you back into eFedding? We kind of touched on that. It was the efedpodcast.com. And is it what you thought it would be like? Good question.
No, I suppose not, right? Because I kind of assumed it was just going to be a bunch of kids, and I didn't realize that the kids play video game feds now. Like, it's just old folk who do the writing, which is fine. I kind of don't want them involved, to be honest, so I'm cool with it. But
absolutely. It's interesting because, it is the same people who were writing back when you were writing. And we just all grew up.
Yeah, but we got better, too, and we've let go of the... Imagine a 15-year-old in Defiance being like, why don't I beat everybody? Like, who needs that?
Oh, amazing. That would be great. I kind of want to see it happen. Now that I'm not there and I'm just an observer. Okay. Tell me a feud you really enjoyed from eFedding back in the day with one of your characters.
I kind of would probably have to be the one that I had talked about, which was
the really
Laramie.
long feud, yeah.
Yeah, and the character Mike Gillis, where they started off as a mismatched tag team and progressed to a blood feud, and it was a good, long piece of business with lots of twists and turns. So,
well, how much did Connor Fuse help Pat Cassidy's career in Defiance? Let's be honest, it's a lot, right?
Yeah, honestly, it is.
Self-serving.
Yeah, I got to give you that one, Roland. You stepped up when I didn't know anybody, and you like helped me. Like, here's what you do here, and I like. He also did that for me too, right? Like, I was like, how do I post things backstage? Like, I have no idea what's going on. So,
to be fair, that's what we asked Roland to do for all of the new people, and then he kind of just became staff somehow.
Is that so? Yeah, he was. Oh, so I wasn't getting like.
I mean, he read your stuff and loved it, and picked you out of a bunch.
I suddenly feel a lot less special, so fuck music. All right.
I don't want to be on this podcast anymore. Have a great day.
I'm done.
It's still real to me, damn it. Okay. What inspired you to write the Defiance wrestling reviewer, Tim Tellinghast?
When I was new and I was walking into a Fed with like years of backstory and characters who had been together for a while, it was really easy to get lost, especially since the way we write shows, like, you don't describe your character every time he appears on screen.
Right.
You just assume that the person reading note. And so that can be really confusing for a new person. So I was just writing down little summaries of the show so I could be like, okay, this person's this person. And then I realized, like, why not just like turn this into something? And I created a snarky internet character who would say all the things I think an internet person would say about an eFed. And it was my way of doing feedback in a way that, like, I was still being a little creative about it.
Absolutely,
yeah. People liked it, so I just kept rolling with it. You're
far too nice when you write as Tillinghast. I know it's not a question.
I do know that because I sometimes suspect that people think his opinions are mine. And every once in a while they might be, but for the most part, they're not. Like, I read I can stomach a lot of nonsense in e-wrestling. Like, we have a lot of leeway. We're writing this shit. But if I'm putting on a brain, like, if this was real and I was like a wrestling purist, like, some of the stuff I'd be like, it would be shit on. So, but I also feel like people put a lot of work into it, and whether it's in character or not, sometimes I feel like I don't want to piss anybody off. So I tend to air nice unless I know they can take it. So
unless you're friendly with the person and you don't mind giving them the elbow.
Yeah, if I've, sometimes I'll message them ahead of time, be like, hey, this guy said this, and they'll be like, that's cool. But I try to be nice.
What a dick. No, kidding. Could you ever see Pat Cassidy and Malik Garland being friends?
I could see Pat Cassidy being friends with almost anybody, except in the last feud, Malik Garland implied that he got Cassidy's sisters drunk and something happened between them. So, no, I think Malik is dead to Pat forever.
Lots to unpack here.
Yeah.
Pat Cassidy's reveal as Brock Newblood's partner versus the comments section when Pat and Brock captured the tag team titles was the greatest bloody thing I read all year. Legit mark out moment. I also know this isn't a question.
Thank you. I enjoyed writing it.
Okay, bye. Thanks, Roland. Appreciate your questions and your great Canadian wit.
I've always wanted to do this. Hi, Roland.
Hi, Roland.
There you go.
Beautiful. Hi, Roland. Okay. Sorry. All right, Rossi Orton. Speaking of Roland, it's Ross. He has a game for you. What's your favorite type of lager?
Yeah, he has a series of them, right?
Yes, he does.
Like he has. Most of the beer that I would say I like is like local because I guess I'm a hipster. I guess that's what it makes me.
Yes.
So I'm not gonna go through all those because most people haven't heard of them.
Come on, man. Play the game.
All right, Bud Light.
That's very local. Ale?
For ale, I don't even what even qualifies as an ale. Does that have to be red?
Yeah, it could be a red ale.
Okay.
I guess a pale ale is an ale.
Yeah. Okay,
Or-
Bud Light.
Bud Light.
Bud Light.
Yeah.
Pilsner is Bud Heavy, and Stout is Guinness. There we go.
There you go. Mixed drink.
Ooh, mixed drink. No, that's okay. That's legit. If I'm feeling fancy, it's an old fashioned, and if I'm feeling not fancy, it's a Jack and Coke.
There you go.
Yeah,
We're not fancy here on the EFED podcast.
I'm rarely feeling fancy. So
Have you ever thought about brewing your own beer, and why haven't you gone into business with it yet?
the competition is stiff, my friend. I don't know. Like you're from Canada, like you guys got some beer up there. At least in my neck of the woods, there's a lot of breweries. It's really hard. It'd be hard to break in.
Thanks, Ross. Jason Reeves, the Stalker's up next. Good friend of the show. Question 1, fantasy booking request. DEF CON 2023. Fist match, tag team match, Soher match. Go.
Okay. 2023. That's 2 years from now. For the Fist, we've got Connor Fuse versus Resin. Resin is the Fist.
Nice.
For the, what else is there?
Tag
There's
team
Soher.
and the Soher.
Tag team, Saturday Night Specials, Hollywood Bruvs. It's going to happen.
Yes.
Bruvs coming in as champions because the working class guys got to chase. And then Soher, I'm going to pick two people that I just really like. I'm going to say Dex Joy and DeVargas Alvaro. That's there we go. That's a good card.
I like that question. I don't think we've gotten that one before.
Yeah.
Question 2, give Dex Joy the fist. Oh, sorry. Question 2, which character in Defiance would you like to have Pat Cassidy have a singles feud with, and who goes over and why? I think we kind of did this one.
We did, but I've got, and I'm not just saying this because it's him, but I'm going to say a member of the Cabal, one of them, whether it's Starker or whoever, just because I have this really cool idea for a Cabal segment that I'm not going to talk about because it's in my back pocket and I've been dying to use it. So give me one of them. I want to do this segment. So
Smart.
yeah.
Get with him, Justin. Everyone knows you will. If Justin and Joe were show running Defiance, where would our first road show arc take us and why?
Well, we'd have to start going up the East Coast, right? You move from New Orleans and you go up the East Coast. So
It's either East Coast or Gulf Coast. Those are your choices, my friend.
yeah, I'm gonna loop around and start up the East Coast and come back. That's the plan. So I'd say, well, we could hit Atlanta, we could hit Florida. Maybe the first pay-per-view is like
Don't even say Jacksonville.
somewhere in North or South Carolina. We'll end up. I don't know. That's where we'll be by then.
All right. Are you a Ben Affleck fan? Here we go.
Ben Affleck's okay, but he was the bomb in Phantoms.
What is it about Defiance that makes you want to stick around with us knuckleheads? Kenny, you a knucklehead.
What is it that makes me want to stick around? I think it's just a lot of. I just found a lot of people from various parts of the world, part of the country, who are wrestling fans of a similar background and age, who seem to also enjoy telling wrestling stories. And I haven't had a dud angle partner yet, right? Like everybody's like, "Here's my ideas, let's do it," and it's just that's what I think if the creative well dries up and people stop, coming with the good ideas, and maybe it's time to move on, but that doesn't happen. So as long as everybody is who they are and being super creative, I'm in it. So that's what keeps me around.
It's a great answer. And Defiance is a great place to get creative. DefianceWrestling.com. You had to get that one in too.
Yeah, I just wanted to.
Hashtag is your mom hot OG. Are you ready?
Oh, I've been waiting for a year and a half for this.
You heard it on the early episodes. What did you think the first time you heard Ridiculous's questions?
That was when I was like, who let the 15-year-old on? I thought this was grown. I love Rick. He always sends me random vampire memes.
Dude, he is the meme king. I absolutely love it. Him and Will are the guys.
Yeah.
All right, question 1. You know what it is. It's already coming. Is your mom hot?
No and no for number 2.
She is not single, and you won't have to call him dad. Sorry, Rick.
Rick.
Out again. He's like 0 for 81 now.
Someday he'll find love.
What is your favorite aspect of the hobby? Is it planning, writing, reading, or predicting outcomes?
It is a tie between planning and reading, because I like to an initial sit down, let's map it out. Where are we going to put some twists and turns? How are we going to surprise people? And then I like reading what other people have come up with too. So it's a tie, planning and reading.
And it's a good question because a lot of people get enjoyment out of different aspects.
Yeah.
Why does Count Novick raid the women's washroom at Walmart for his tea bags?
Do you know I think he tweeted this at Count Novick on Twitter. And it took me so long to figure out what the fuck he was talking about. It took me way too long to
The gross.
Yeah. But I don't think Novick's that desperate. But if he is, it's because vampires are very persecuted in our society and they can't live their life freely. So,
do you have a vampire impression to share with us, Joe?
Not this day.
You thought about it. You thought about it for a second.
I would need a couple more of these pumpkin ales.
I want you to answer the question. Yeah. Okay. All right. Is it actually true that Brock Newblood is in reality Pat Cassidy's second best friend, his first being a dirty barroom floor?
Yeah, the barroom floor never banged his sister. So, What are you going to say?
Can I just say, my jaw dropped when I read that angle. Like it was part of our match and our gig and our thing, and then you had this big blow off at the end. And I'm reading the shtick, and I'm just like, oh shit, and I just over and over.
It was so, and like Ross and Gorman, we just every week Malik would be like, I'm gonna break you guys up. Here's something, and they'd be like, fuck you. And then so we built it up, and then finally he actually dropped the bomb. And I was like, I think people are going to be shocked by us. So I'm glad to hear that. That's good.
It was great, and a great blow off. And then you had the big pay-per-view match, and he showed up.
Yeah,
terrific story. So shout out to you and Gorman and everybody involved in that angle. That was terrific.
Thank you.
So what exactly is Dr. Ned Reform a doctor of, and where did he graduate from?
Ooh, Rick, there is a story there, but I'd be an idiot if I just said it now, because that is a angle someday. So
Defiance Wrestling
that's a story for another day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Finish the following quotes with wrong answers only.
Okay.
Life is like a box of chocolates.
Life is like a box of chocolates. You don't want to finish it too early. Ooh, that's good. That's good.
That's one small step for man.
That's one giant dick for Ridiculous.
That's terrific. Never mind. When the going gets tough.
When the going gets tough, shut the fuck up.
Great advice. My mom always told me that growing up. Speaking of moms all over the world.
Moms all over the world. Cast off the chains of your oppressors. That's what we're going with.
All right. Great questions, Ridiculous, but we're going to move on to Mom. Your favorite admin, it's Lynn's.
Oh, Lynn's.
Yes, hello. Big Joe fan here, bringing you hot and spicy questions. Number 1, favorite current and former player from Boston sports teams?
Oh, I don't know jack about sports, so I'm going to say who plays for Boston. What's his face? Tom Brady. Oh, he doesn't play there anymore. Tom Brady.
Tim Gravy.
Yeah, Tim Gravy. That's the one. That's the guy.
All right, Tim Gravy. Question 2, predict Cassidy's placement in the Efed Podcast Top 100 2021.
Oh.
And will you keep the Larry Bird number or maybe hit Dustin Pedroia's?
I have no idea what Pedroia's number is, so I don't know. It's tough because he's more established, but he's also a tag team guy, which, I think when you make a list of your top wrestlers, you usually focus on singles more than not. So we'll see how he does. I'm not sure.
In what Fed will we see the Bard appear?
Oh, I don't know. I have this idea for a character that's like 7 foot tall, like Kane, Undertaker, Sid Vicious type monster, but he thinks he's William Shakespeare. And it sounds silly, but I think I could make it work seriously because I got a plan. But I cannot commit to something else right now, so I don't know. Somewhere in the future, he'll make an appearance somewhere.
Pedroia, for the record, is number 15.
She honors me.
Fantasy book a feud between Saturday Night Specials and Surf Express Bro.
Saturday Night Specials get drunk and eat the Bros nachos, and it's settled in a bloody Hell in a Cell.
Well, that escalated quickly. Pick a feud from the following characters. You don't have to book it out, and you're not limited to the feds they're in. Alex Bruder, okay. Josh Breedlove, Arthur Pleasant, Brock Newblood, Pat Cassidy, Double Decker, Malik Garland, Connor Fuse, BDSM, Freddie Kilgore, and Resin. The only hitch, you can't book Brock and Pat as a tag team.
Oh, they're saying, okay. Can you want to like...
So pick a feud for the following characters. I'm going to hit you one at a time now. Okay. Alex Bruder, any Fed.
Alex Bruder is all business. So I would put him against Dex Joy, who's tons of fun.
The biggest boy, yes.
Yeah.
That'd be a great one. I'd love to see that.
Yeah.
Josh Breedlove.
Josh Breedlove is the shit-talking king of shoot projects. He's a fantastic character. And I actually think I'd like to see him and Connor Fuse because Connor Fuse is morphed into this kind of wholesome everyman, and he'd be a good anti-Josh Breedlove. That'd be a good feud.
Arthur Pleasant.
Arthur Pleasant. I want to turn Arthur Pleasant babyface, which is really hard to do because he's like one of the most unlikable characters ever walk the face of Efeding. But I'd put him against Lord Colossus. Colossus would, like, it'd be like a Mick Foley Undertaker thing.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, eventually you just start to feel bad for Pleasant, and Pleasant would be like, show that he's a tough bastard. So that would be it. Lord Colossus.
Good answer. Brock Newblood.
Brock Newblood as a singles. Brock is a if the Saturday Night Specials are the Steiners, he's Scott, because he's like this freak athlete suplex machine. So I'd put him against Scro because Scro, his matches recently is just like this like big bumper. So he would fly around the ring for Brock.
I'd probably put him against the Iceman, who never showed up. Pat Cassidy as a singles.
Pat Cassidy. No one even understands that. But
chill.
Hey Brock, freeze. All right, I'm gonna say Pat Cassidy versus the heel Oscar Burns. I write Cassidy like he's Steve Austin, and I want Burns to be heel Bret Hart, and I want to have that match. That's what I want to have.
Nice.
Yeah.
How about the bus, Double Decker?
Teresa Ames. She's the only one who can handle that whole lot of man.
That's a whole lot of man. Honk. All right. Brian, insert honk noise here. Okay. Malik Garland.
Malik Garland. I actually think there's a character in Shoot called Ben Bronson. I think Malik and Ben would match up nicely just because I won't go into details, but I just think the characters. Yeah, I'm gonna go with that. That's my answer. I'm trying to mix Feds here too and do some, like,
absolutely. Do some fantasy booking. I love it.
Yeah, super card I'm making.
Well, you mentioned earlier Josh Breedlove versus Connor Fuse, but if I ask you Connor Fuse, is it still Josh?
No, I'll do a different one. This is a cheat, and it sounds like I'm like, because we kind of just did it, but there's more to be had. I want Connor Fuse and Ned Reform, because I think there's more stuff to be milked there with Ned, like looking down on people who play video games, being like childish, and we could do more with that. So I'm going to say Ned Reform, Connor Fuse.
Nice.
Yeah.
Keep it going. BDSM. That's Bobby Dean and some man.
Versus the Cabal.
Oh no.
I want to see it.
I just want to see the DMs between Justin and Bobby Dean.
I want it to be like a 3-arc program. I just want to see what happens.
Feral Freddy Kilgore.
Oh, Kilgore. Kilgore versus CK Butcher.
Nice. Our good friend Ben.
Yeah, that would be a good one.
Ben, let's give a shout out to Ben. He was a great addition to Classic when he started. He was a part of the staff and wrote a bunch of matches for us. Also, a former interview and a great member of the Efed podcast Discord. So shout out to Ben.
Yeah, awesome dude. Great writer. Like I don't know, you probably never caught his Butcher stuff because it was all in shoot, but he was a phenomenal writer. He normally I don't hate, but I get lost in role plays that are written like novels. I tend to I just get lost in them, but he was able to hook me and keep my attention because he's just so good with words. So shout out to him.
And Resin, finally.
Resin versus himself. Resin is his own worst enemy, and that's the blood feud that needs to happen. Resin versus Resin.
Resin versus the mirror. I like it.
Yeah.
Great questions, Linz. Up next is Kevin. We joke in Classic that Freddy Kilgore is on all of the cocaine. Does he need the help? Or does he need help?
Talk to me in 15 years. We'll see.
From MDG, it's Warren, Modern Day Gladiators. Defiance and Classic-Wrestling.com are in a ratings war. Who wins and why?
You're going to make me put mom and dad against each other here. That's what you're going to do.
If it's Defiance, Brian's going to leave it in. If it's Classic, he's going to edit it out.
Yeah. I think Defiance is the best. If they're head-to-head, I think right now Defiance wins because it's been around longer and it's got some of the quote-unquote bigger names. But I think
it's more appropriate for today's audience.
That too, yeah. I think Classic is more of a niche artist. So, but I think Classic's giving it a run for its money. So, but I think Defiance is leaning into the established brand, as it were. So
beautiful.
Yeah.
Tim Tellinghast's love for Arthur Pleasant is legendary. What level of love does he have for Classic-Wrestling.com's Double Decker?
So I don't know why. I think it's just because MJ is just I know he's can take it, but Tillinghast is the one. He shits on Arthur Pleasant
every time.
Because if Arthur Pleasant was a real wrestler, Jim Cornette would be ranting about it's legit. But so shout out to MJ for letting me just be a dickhead. But
MJ, another great guy.
Yeah, Tillinghast. The question was, I think Tillinghast understands what Classic is going for and is more forgiving of things like the bus, because in the context of the world it works. I think Defiance is supposed to be more of a grittier reality-based deal, so he's less tolerant when silly stuff happens, but I think he's game for a lot in Classic.
I would shit myself if Double Decker showed up in Defiance.
Oh, dude.
I'm in for it. Don't get me wrong.
I got a vampire going. It can happen.
A vampire who rides the bus. I like it.
Yeah.
Ned Reform gets signed to be a star by which current real-world wrestling promotion, and who's his first feud?
I couldn't send a form to WWE. That's just cruel. So I guess he's going to AEW, and he's going against Jon Moxley, the everyman versus the intellectual.
There you go. I like it. From Brox, again, are you really still fired?
I think so. I don't know. I said a lot of nice things about Brian in this podcast, so maybe I'll make it through. We'll see.
I can't wait to hear the outro.
Yeah. It's just going to be him saying, fuck you, you're fired. That's how the podcast is going to end.
Shoot Josh, where did the idea for Ned Reform come from? Good question.
Oh, yeah. So I work at a school, so I've been in the academic world for a while now, and I come across a lot of blowhards who love the sound of their own voice and think they're really smart when they're only okay smart. And that's what Reform is. Some people say to me, like, you wrote this, this segment with Ned Reform, and he didn't use this word correctly. I'm like, I know. Like, it's not that he's a dummy, but it's like he's not as smart as he thinks he is. So he's just my way of channeling my own annoyance with those people into a really pain in the ass character.
He's trying to fake it till he makes it.
Yeah, and it's not like he's dumb, but he's not as special as he thinks he is.
There's levels to it. I love it. When is Ned Reform returning to shoot Pop Pop?
He lost a loser leaves town match. That's true. And as we know in wrestling, you have to follow your stipulations. So
he left town. He's done left town.
Gone. He's done.
All right. Talk about your experience doing the more traditional style of e-fetting versus what you're doing over in Shoot Project.
It's cool. It's a different experience to sit down and read a card versus hit play and like, oh, there's my character, there's their theme music. Oh crap, they're hitting that. Like, it's a really cool visual experience. I can see the appeal and like I like it. I want to bring like all characters to Shoot just so I can see them in video game form. The only thing is I really enjoy the psychology aspect of wrestling. So like writing a match where Pat Cassidy is frustrated and he's making careless mistakes is fun to me. And when in Shoot, I sometimes run into like, I want to do that as a part of the angle, but like, how do you can't do that? Right. Like you can't, what do you do? So it's two different mediums. But I think like Shoot has made me want to get Fire Pro because the game is so cool. And I'm amazed at how the guys over there and the girls, take that and like do stuff with it, like they're able to like use a video game match to like then cut a promo about it and like tell a story, and I'm like, oh, I am not on that level yet, like I gotta figure it out. But it's been really cool, and I'm really glad I joined. So
finally, from Josh, what are your ultimate goals for Pat Cassidy and Ned Reform?
Pat Cassidy will become the deranged, senile old veteran. He'll basically be Ric Flair, but like not a rapist. Like,
he'll be up on Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, Ric Flair's on-screen character where he would just come out and be like, "I'm Ric Flair, I'm a crazy old man." Like that's what Pat Cassidy will be someday. And Ned Reform will someday he'll lose and not come back because that's what the bad guy does.
Very true. Alex Smiley up next, good friend of the show, sponsor on the show. Question 1, do you believe in life after love?
Do I believe in life after love? Oh, I don't know the next lyric. I thought I'd be wicked clever, but I forgot it. I can feel something. I don't know what it is.
Do you believe?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I think there's life after love, Alex. Thank you.
Good. Alex is very happy to hear that and has hope for the future now. Question 2, who put the bump in the bump, bump?
Yeah, he's just putting questions up for his own therapeutic needs. All right. Who put the bomb in the bop? I'm going to say it was probably King Kong Frank.
King Kong Frank put the whiskey or put the moonshine in too. Yeah. Question 3, if you, the handler, could be transported to any era of wrestling to watch shows on the regular, which era or promotion would it be?
1997 WWF. That's it for me. That's the apex of wrestling in my mind, which I know is not, if you're a wrestling historian, you're like, what the hell? But for me, that's it. So
that's a great year. So next we got Brian. And Brian did take the time to put a question on He says, Joe, what are you doing here? I thought we made it clear you were fired.
Oh, you meant fired.
Oh, that kind of fired.
Oh, okay. Well,
all right, see you tomorrow.
I'll be by to clean out my desk in the morning.
Brian.
Someday he might really want to actually tell me to get out, and I'm just gonna treat it as a joke, and he'll never be able to get rid of me. So I hope he's right.
He's ruined the ability to actually fire you at this point.
Yeah, like I'm just never leaving. So enjoy.
You're fired, bro. You're fired, Joe. Yeah, okay, Brian, I got you. Fired. Okay. Hi, Paul wants to know. Question 1, is my question too late?
No, because I'm hearing it. I think you're good.
Yeah, he made the show. Good job, Paul. Question 2, why is your Boston accent the best?
Dude, all right. I know this is like we're near the end, so I won't go long here, but Paul does this amazing thing, for those of you who don't know, called Defiance Radio.
So good.
Which is like, some people do little things to make the Fed better. Like I was like, oh, I'm gonna write a review. He blew everybody out of the water, and he always does. And he asked me to be on as Pat Cassidy, and I was like, I can't do it. Like I can't do a Boston accent. Like Cassidy's not a joke, and if I do it sounds stupid. But he eventually talked me into it, and I know shit. Like I was looking up YouTube videos for actors of like how to do the Boston accent, and I don't think I have a good one, but I think I was able to do one that doesn't sound like a total joke. And so
give us a line.
I don't think I'll give you a line.
Yeah.
No. You can go listen to it. I have to do my homework. You can't just have me do it cold.
Well, give us something you said on the show.
What did I say on the show?
You're wicked smart.
Well, the thing about the Boston accent is you inflect upwards. So like, a lot of people end on low notes, but in Boston, they go up high at the end. And so Cassidy was just like, he sounded like a normal guy, which most people from Boston do, except his inflection was high, and I said parking lot. So he was like, well, we're full. There's not even a single car in the parking lot. And like, that's all it was. And that was enough for him to say, like, that was a good job, because I didn't go complete Ben Affleck. So that's
amazing. And Linz will be happy to hear that, because she enjoys the Kapak.
Yeah.
All right. What was your favorite part of this interview?
Is that a question he asked?
Yeah.
Oh, my favorite part of this interview was saying all that out loud. Like, no, but like all that stuff I just said was true, but I've never thought down and like chronologically thought about it, So it's nice to be like, oh yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff going on. This is pretty fun.
You never dive that far into detail in e-wrestling in a conversational setting.
That's 100% true, and I likely never will again. So one-time experience.
I'm glad we could do that for you. Question 4: why does Brian want you fired from Defiance?
I think Brian really enjoys me as an employee. I have never been late. That's not true. I was late once, but other than that one time, I've never been late. I don't propose ridiculous, crazy ideas involving midgets. And I tend to stay out of his way. So I think when he fires me, it's his way of saying, Joe, I really care about you. And he just can't say it. That's my theory.
Probably. But you're fired. Sorry. Question 5, and finally from Hi Paul and from our studio audience, who are not really in studio. Question 5, I was super drunk from my interview. On a scale of 1 to Justin Boucheron, how drunk are you right now?
I am nowhere near Justin, I can tell you that much.
One of the most fun interviews ever. Yes.
I've only had a 16-ounce beer, so I'm like 1.5. Like, I'm pretty coherent right now.
He's just a little toasty. I like it.
Sorry if that's... No, yeah, I'm good.
Just enough to get a little bit out of you.
Yeah, let the hair down a little bit.
Well, Joe, this has been a lot of fun, and I'm glad we got a chance to do the interview finally. You've been on the list for a while, and we got to do this, talk Defiance, Classic, Shoot Pop Pop, and so much more. Had a good time talking to you. Before I let you go, is there anything else you want to plug, promote, put over, or shout out to?
No, I would just say thanks to all the people that I worked with so far, because everybody's been really cool to get to know and a good creative partner. Thanks to you. It's cool sitting here and talking to you. Like, we've never really had a conversation before.
Yeah.
So it was nice to hear that. And if my statement about Brian loving me makes the podcast, I will be very surprised. So we'll see how that goes. But.
Well, good deal. Joe, thank you so much. I really enjoyed your writing. I now enjoyed your interview, and I'm looking forward to seeing where you go from here, both in Classic and Defiance, and maybe even Shoot Pop Up.
Yeah, we'll see. I got all kinds of tricks up my sleeve, so looking forward to it.
All right, buddy. Thank you very much for the interview.
Take care.
And that's going to wrap us up for another edition of the Efed podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today on the show. I want to thank Joe for coming on and bullshitting with us, having a great time, and talking about his e-wrestling career. I really love doing this and talking to some of my good friends and co-handlers that I get to handle with in other feds. It's really nice getting to know Joe on a different level.
Yeah, it's sad though. Parting is bittersweet. Joe, thanks for coming. But you'll never be on the show again because you're fired from the show.
You're fired. You'll never make the show again, just like everybody else who's been on the show prior.
Fired guy.
Joe didn't stop the fire. So, Joe, thanks for coming on the show, buddy. I had a blast talking to you. I want to thank everybody for answering this week's question of the week. We want to thank our sponsors over at the efedpodcast.com, at FSW Network, the future stars of wrestling, at FSWnetwork.com. We've also got OccupyProWrestling.com. Great wrestling community. Check out our Patreon. Patreon.com/EFED podcast. That's where you can support the show for as little as $3 a month. Help us out and help us improve the show, do the top 100, have fun. You're going to see the YouTube content coming at you here shortly. I'm excited to bring it to you. I know Brian is not. And
come on, folks, donate, join the Patreon, whatever. We need the production value.
Don't forget to check out efedtees.com. It's a fun little project Brian and I came up with. We are supporting the hobby, getting those t-shirts out there. If you want a t-shirt for your wrestler, your stable, your tag team, your fed, it doesn't matter. We've got you. Check it out. efedtees.com. And Brian, that's going to wrap us up for this show. Any thoughts to end what we've gone over here today? Besides, don't hang out with your wrestler.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Let me check my notes real quick.
Hi, Paul.
Yeah, hi, Paul. Joe's fired. Paul's not. Joe is fired. Yeah, we're good.
Okay, good to go. Guys, that's going to wrap us up. Episode 83. Thank you so much for listening. For Brian, I'm Mikey. This is the EFED podcast, where the wrestling is written, but the characters are real.
Presented commercial free on Patreon.com.
Shoot pop up.
Oh yes.
Panera. Hey Brian, if you're listening to this, you're the best. Yes, you are. No matter what Mikey says, you're the best. The whole show works because of you.
I quit all feds or something.